Tips on how to grow tomatoes in winter, a beginner's guide. Growing tomatoes in the winter is challenging. The plants need a lot of heat, light, and moisture to thrive during this time of year. If you love fresh tomatoes as much as we do, you'll find a way to grow them no matter what time of year it is. Here are some tips on how to grow tomatoes in the winter. Growing tomatoes from seeds or transplants should be done at the beginning of October when nights are between 44 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit for optimal germination rates. Choose an area with plenty of sunlight and soil that drains well. Prepare your soil by removing any rocks or sticks and adding manure compost or other organic compost if necessary. Add a teaspoon of ascorbic acid per gallon of soil to improve flavor and reduce yellowing due to lack of light. Keep the soil slightly wet. The most important thing to grow great tomatoes is to keep the soil slightly wet. Tomatoes do not like to be too wet, but they will rot if the soil is too dry. Check the soil every few days by sticking your finger 2 inches into the soil. If it is dry, water the plants. In addition, tomatoes need plenty of nutrients. The best way to add needed nutrients to the soil is by growing your tomatoes in a container. Containers are easy to move so they can be placed where they get the most light. You can enrich the soil with compost, lawn clippings, coffee grounds, and almost any type of vegetable or fruit scraps you might have. Growing your tomato plants in a container also allows you to control the planting depth, which is important because tomato plants have the roots growing close to the surface. Add a fertilizer rich in NPK. Besides adding compost to the soil, start feeding your tomato plants with a fertilizer rich in nitrogen, phosphate, and potassium. As tomatoes get closer to ripening, they will need more phosphorus. Choose a fertilizer that's designed for tomatoes or other fruits and veggies. Fertilizer with a 3:1:2 ratio would be great for tomatoes. Now, you can either buy a commercial fertilizer from a hardware store or make your own fertilizer by combining manure compost with a few other ingredients. One of the ingredients you can use to make a fertilizer is coffee grounds. This has many benefits for plants, including improving the soil structure, adding nutrients, and protecting plants from diseases and pests. Layer on the hummingbird food. Tomatoes are the favorite food of hummingbirds. You can attract hummingbirds to your tomato plants by placing a shallow tray of water nearby. Add a few drops of red food coloring if you want to make the water more visible to the hummingbirds. Another trick to keep the hummingbirds around is to add nectar-rich flowers to your garden. Besides tomatoes, certain flowers that attract hummingbirds include bee balm, dill, fennel, and cosmos. Install a light timer and rotating fan. If you are growing your plants indoors, you can use a light timer and a rotating fan to mimic sunlight. The light timer will turn on the lights for either 10 or 14 hours a day to provide enough light for the plants to grow. And the rotating fan will provide additional air circulation to prevent mold and rot. If you are growing your plants outdoors, you will need to start the process much earlier because of the shorter days. Conclusion: grow tomatoes in the winter if you can't get them to grow in other seasons. you can still enjoy delicious tomatoes grown in a greenhouse or indoors on a windowsill during the winter months. These tips on how to grow tomatoes in the winter will help you grow healthy, delicious tomatoes that you can enjoy fresh from your own backyard.